and I say it all the time that my goals far outweigh my bodily pains. My goals far outweigh my bodily pains, and my goals are to be a good human. I have 3 kids, my wife, my business, and to be a good human and to be the proper person in these environments. And that's so important to me. And the only way I can achieve that is by continuing to train.
You are listening to the Go Earn Your Salt podcast, brought to you by Salty Electrolytes. On this podcast, your host, Riley Rogers, explores the stories of people who get after it, get things done, and earn their salt. You will hear from high achievers who discuss what makes them tick, how they got to where they are today, and where they're headed tomorrow. Perhaps this podcast will help you go earn your salt. Welcome to the show. Today I have David Dunn, the man himself. We're friends from the internet, and we've become friends since then in person, but he's introduced me to tuna fishing and to some jiu-jitsu legends. David is a 5th degree black belt under the legend Jean-Jacques Machado in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Sir.
And he was there in the early days when jiu-jitsu first came to the United States. David's also a businessman. He's an avid deep sea tuna fisher. Just, again, an actor. Crap, the accolades just go on and on and on. So, David, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good to see you as always.
Yeah, dude. So, we were commenting off air, but David's got this hoodie on that he's wearing, and he gave me one of those, a very similar one, but the original early model that he made. So I have one. I should have brought it in here and showed you guys, but it's pretty awesome. I get to sport that thing here periodically. But, dude, what's been going on since we talked last?
Man, just doing what I do with 3 young kids, and the business and training, and just keeping myself busy. Life isn't easy in Southern California because costs are so high, I guess like they are anywhere else, but it keeps me active and keeps me busy. I work long days. I love my job. I love what I do. I love the people I interact with. So I don't really consider it work, but I get up early and go hard, and 9 o'clock in bed and back up the next day at 5 a.m. and go again. And I'm blessed to be turning 60 years old this year and still in physically proper shape. And I feel good. I feel blessed. And it's all from jujitsu. Jujitsu gave me literally everything I have. My relationship with you is because of jujitsu. My relationship with my best friends is because of jujitsu. And I'm just blessed that I found the sport as early as I did and was able to be part of the upbringing of the sport, and still carry the flag today of Jean-Jacques Machado. So I feel very blessed.
Yeah. I want to talk about that as we get going on, but first, talk about David, man. Who are you? Where'd you come from? What was life like as a kid?
I grew up in a place called Brooklyn, Michigan, southern central Michigan. I grew up on a farm, a small farm, 35 acres. We had pigs and chickens and horses, and I was a farm boy. I grew up on the farm. I always had a desire to be an athlete. I played baseball and basketball and ran track in high school, and I was athletic and I was active, but it was on the farm. There was the focus wasn't there like it is today, like you have with your son, like I have with my kids. It was just kind of go shoot from the hip and do as you do. And so I was an athlete, but hung out on the farm and shot guns and chased deer through the fields and cow tipped, and did what you do as a kid in the middle of the country in the 70s and the 80s. It was a fun time. And I've been in Los Angeles now 33 years, and I can't lie to tell you I miss the country. I miss the bonfires and the open space and no crowds, and I definitely miss that. And maybe one day I'll get back to it, but for the meantime, I have kids here in Los Angeles doing their thing, and I have my business here still, and my wife has a few more years to work before she's capable of retiring. So in the meantime, we'll continue to push in jujitsu and do life here as it is. But yeah, my upbringing was in a place called Brooklyn, Michigan, just south of Jackson, Michigan. Brooklyn, Michigan, famous for Michigan International Speedway. I believe the fastest racetrack in the United States. I don't know what those Indy cars do on the straightaways, but I would guess they're pushing 280 or 300 miles an hour. That was my first job as a kid, was working at the racetrack for Elias Brothers Big Boy, and I did catering at the racetrack. And I think I started working at the racetrack when I was about 15, and worked with the big boy and the catering stuff all through high school and even into part of after I graduated college. I actually had a job at one of the big boys for a short period of time. Not a big boy, but I was a manager at the restaurant in the Pontiac Silverdome, which was run and owned by the Elias Brothers Big Boy chain. So what I started at 15, I guess when I finished college, my first job was still with that same group. So
Super
yeah.
cool. Super cool.
Hmm.
So we're gonna go into kind of your business career, what that looks like, and then but I do want to talk
Okay.
about what really brought you into jujitsu. You know, you said you were an athlete, but you mentioned more team sports, and now you get introduced to this thing called jujitsu, and I wonder what that backstory looks like.
I started ATA Taekwondo at 17 when I went to moved to East Lansing, Michigan, where Michigan State University is. I started ATA Taekwondo there. I was 17 years old. I trained in the ATA system for an extremely short period of time. I mean, maybe a year or so, and then I switched over and started training on campus with a club group. Lee Shin was my instructor, who's still my friend today, was my roommate in college. And Lee Shin was the head instructor there, and he was kind of the Cobra Kai of Michigan State University at the time, and had an attitude, or had an image of having an edge and ready to fight. And I thought that was cool. And looking back, it probably wasn't what I thought it was then, because I came from the farm. So we were swinging sticks at each other. That was about how we took care of business. And now I'm in a formal fight environment, if you would. And yeah, that was it. It was on the campus of Michigan State University, where I learned, after I did the ATA Taekwondo, went to the campus of Michigan State University in the club sport there and trained with Lee Shin and Taekwondo for probably 4 years or so, all through college. And that was my flavor for the martial arts, or my real desire or love for the martial arts, came with Taekwondo. I left Taekwondo, or when I finished college, I stopped training in Taekwondo. Maybe I trained till I was 22 or 23, and took about a 3 or 4 year break after college, and came to Los Angeles, moved to Orange County, Huntington Beach, California, and I continued to train there. But my recollection of training in Orange County in the early days, 92, 93, was I was shadow boxing in my backyard, near the beach. I would jump rope each day and look at myself in the mirror and thought I was cute and thought I was Rocky. And that was in Huntington Beach, like I said, about 93 or so, 94. And then I came north from Huntington Beach to Los Angeles, 1994, and opened my school that I have now, June of 95. I would say in about August of 1994, I crossed paths with a guy. No, we started training because we were watching the UFCs. We had the UFCs on the half inch or 1 inch VHS tapes, or whatever those things were, and we would plop those in and watch the motion on the screen from the UFC, and then we would try to mimic it. My roommate at the time was a guy by the name of Steve Cardenas. Steve Cardenas was the Red Power Ranger, still travels with the Comic Con today and does his deal with Comic Con, and still my friend. But Steve was my roommate, and we turned our kitchen area into a mixed martial arts, into a cage. We cleared the table out of the dining area, and we had a 10 by 10 area that we fought in. We would literally just swing at each other and try to leg lock and foot lock each other and arm lock, and we had no idea what in the hell we were doing. But we were trying to mimic Hoist Gracie. We all thought we were Hoist. We thought we were going to be Hoist. We were in awe of the whole thing, and so there was really nowhere to train. So we just took it on ourselves. I would say that was in August of 94 when we started doing that. And I can recall leaving, or when I left, moved out of Steve's apartment, who was living with Steve Cardenas. And when I moved out, there was blood 6 feet up the wall. The carpets were red. There was nothing in the dining area, but we had spent hours and hours and hours until 2 in the morning. I can recall starting at 6 or 7 at night and having cocktails and literally fighting through the night, and one after another. And that was just that was the way we learned. And it wasn't jujitsu; it was no holds barred, NHB. We had NHB stickers, and that's what it was. And so we would just go hard and really not have any technical method or any way of learning the technique. Then we got a hold of the Horion Gracie Greg Kukuk VHS tape, and we had, I don't know, two or three of those VHS tapes, and we just played those. I didn't have TV. I didn't have cable, so I would literally just plop this half inch VHS tape in and put it on replay, and it would play on my TV 15 hours a day. If I was home, it would play nonstop, and I would literally just watch in repetition Greg Kukuk and Horion Gracie, and they're standing, most of it standing self-defense stuff. And that's what we did. And we just took those techniques and drilled them in our, I guess at that time I was close to opening a school, or had opened a school, and we would just drill those techniques and cross our fingers that we were getting it right. We didn't really have an instructor or anybody that knew jujitsu. We were just trying to learn. We were the ultimate goofballs, having no guidance and just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. We opened my first school. Steve Cardenas and I opened a school together, June of 1995. And I would say about just a couple weeks after we had opened that school, a guy by the name of Mike Ortiz came in. Mike Ortiz was a blue belt at the time, but he was a unicorn because no one else had a blue belt. We didn't know anybody who understood jujitsu, but we put jujitsu on our sign on the window. We put jujitsu because we thought we understood jiu-jitsu because we'd been fighting in the living room for 6 months. So we figured we could put it on our sign. Truth be told, we didn't even have mats. We had a wooden floor, and we had two fold out 2x4 mats that we put together. And we literally held class on two foot by 4 foot mats. And we would have 8 or 10 of us circle around these two mats, and we would train on those two mats. And that was our jiu-jitsu class. And shortly after I opened, Mike Ortiz came in. He had the blue belt. And then he came in and actually started teaching class, or kind of leading us in jujitsu and giving us principles and concepts. If my recollection was right, he was holding out a little bit because he didn't want to give up the Brazilian secrets in 1995, because they were all considered secrets at that point. And so on occasion, we'd get a little technique from him and be able to implement that into the game or into the training on that specific day. We were holding tournaments. I think we opened in June of 95, and we probably had our first jiu-jitsu tournament in September of 95. So
Jeez.
as soon as we opened, we were like, let's have a tournament. So we opened our doors and had a tournament, and we had quite a turnout for the time in which we were dealing with, because nobody really did jujitsu. They knew the word because if you were a martial artist, you watched the UFC or you watched replays of the UFC. So you were certainly conscious of it, but we didn't know what we were doing. And we put together a tournament, and Oleg Taktarov showed up at the tournament, and we thought we had died and gone straight to heaven.
Yeah, I
When
bet.
Oleg Taktarov walked in the room, he was the champ, he was the contender, he was the man, and Oleg came in. And he came in, and we were in complete awe. Like I said, I thought we had all died and gone to heaven, and Oleg came in and fell asleep and slept
No,
the entire tournament.
no
I
way.
don't. If he watched a match or two, I'd be shocked. I just remember looking over in the corner, and he was laying there sawing logs in the corner, and was completely unimpressed with what we had. But we were impressed that he was there. That was all that mattered to us. Is we had a couple matches, and he was there, and it was exciting to have him there. That was in I would say September or so, a couple months after we opened. We threw that first tournament. Mike Ortiz had come in, showed us a little bit of jujitsu, and helped us kind of get our feet on the ground with some some jujitsu, maybe with some terminology or some basic understanding. And then it was right after that that I went to Hickson Gracie's and signed up. Hickson at the time, if I had to put a date, a month and a date, a year on that, I would say I signed up at Hickson Gracie's school in October of 95 was when I first signed up at Hickson Gracie Academy. Uh, at the time, Hickson had no money and was subletting from a karate school in West Los Angeles. So he had an 8 o'clock class in the morning. I would leave my house at like 6:15 to get to the 8 o'clock class because I had to go up and over the hill from where I live through the San Fernando Valley, up and over the hill into West LA. And so it was at least an hour and a half drive. And I could recall leaving my house super early, 6:15 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning to get to that class. Like I said, Hickson was subletting from a karate school. So we were literally walking into a karate school that had some mats on the floor and we trained there. I believe Hickson had the gym, had the availability for the school was 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. I could be wrong in those times, but my recollection was it was a super early class and there was a super late class because the karate school occupied the mats the other times. So I went to West Los Angeles and started training with Hickson again, late 95, mid 95, started training with Hickson. Really fell in love with the process there. There was when I had a structured class. Luis Claudia was teaching the classes. He has a choral belt currently in Maui, Hawaii. He has a school. He was teaching the classes there. And so I had a formal class to participate in, a structured room. And that was incredible to me because prior to that, all I had was VHS tapes. I was watching Greg Kukuk and Horian Gracie, and
Yeah.
then the limited amount of jujitsu that Mike Ortiz was bringing to us. It just wasn't enough. And then when I got there, I fell in love with the process. I got my ass kicked like I had never had my ass kicked before. It was a hard group of guys at the time because the UFC had just happened. The first two or three UFCs had happened, and so there was this, cock strong attitude of the guys who were there who had blue belts. I don't recall anybody really having a purple belt. Maybe Chris Saunders had a purple belt at the time, but that was I think the only recollection I have of a rank higher than blue belt of an American at that time. So there were, 10, 15 blue belts at the time, but maybe only one purple belt. And then the remainder of the class was the instructors or people who were coming in to visit from Brazil, and you'd see a black belt or whatever. But for the most part, there were, a handful of blue belts and white belts, and it was a hard environment. The Brazilians weren't so interested in giving you their information. So when Hickson would be talking on the sideline or Luis would be speaking in Portuguese to the one of the guys, you'd quit training and look over and try to grasp some of the concepts of what they were teaching because at that time I believe there was still like some holdback on what we were going to give. Knowing no, for what reason I'm unsure, but they had no
Yeah.
interest in just divulging all this information to us. True or not, I have no idea, but in my early days, there was a rumor that Hoist Gracie said he would never give a white man a black belt. So we were climbing a mountain that had no peak. This mountain went to heaven, and we jumped on and we started climbing. And I knew at the time that I was gaining a power. I'm not sure if I knew I was gaining a superpower, but I knew I was gaining a power, and I knew I was participating in something that was going to make me a better person because I knew it was going to make me stronger.
One of the things
Not stronger physically.
One of the things you've
Go ahead.
said there that I want our non-jujitsu audience members to understand is you went from watching videos on crappy VHS tapes to training with the best in the world. And I mean, what a contrast that was, dude. And you're talking about, these guys who didn't want to divulge all the secrets, who are beating the crap out of you, probably for fun because they could. Um, just how rough that training environment would have been, but how cool it would have been to be there for that.
Extremely cool because we knew that what we were involved with was going to manifest into something bigger. We never could have imagined because at the time, John McCain was trying to stop the UFC from happening with all he had at every level. So we never imagined we could have, fights on TV and not pay for it, or the UFC in Anaheim. That was not even a pie at the White House, for crying out loud. That was never even a consideration or a thought. All we were trying to do at the time was learn a little bit about the fight game. At that time, the training was extremely self defense based. I would say 85 to 90% of the techniques that we learned when I was there were self defense based. And if the technique wasn't self defense based, or if it was a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu technique done on the ground, they always said, if the guy is punching, if the guy is punching. So there was the situation where the guy was not throwing strikes, and then there was the situation where he was. And when the person wasn't throwing strikes, this was option A. When the person was throwing strikes or was trying to progress and strike on you, then this was what you did. And so that was always part of the teaching. And I can't lie, I miss that. I miss the self-defense aspect of it. I know the world loves sport jujitsu, and they love, you know, seeing the 10,000 ways you can make a guy tap with a gi on. That's a little bit of fantasy when it comes to mixed martial arts because it doesn't work that way. Is it applicable? Absolutely. Sport jiu-jitsu guys, to me, there's this thing about the sport jiu-jitsu guys not being tough. I'm interested in you showing me how you can beat up one of these world-class sport jiu-jitsu guys. I'm very interested because I can't imagine that would ever be the case, that some guy a boxer could intrude on one of these sport jiu-jitsu guys at the high level. Because if one of those guys get a hold of you, you're going to be a bowl of spaghetti extremely fast.
True.
But back in the day, it was very self-defense oriented, and I loved that. I was attracted to it. When I started teaching, I was teaching as soon as I started at we were already teaching. So as soon as I started at Hickson's, I was bringing those techniques back to my school and immediately implementing them to my students. So we were also, again, all about, if the guy's mounted and he's striking, you have to do this. Now that those conversations are pretty much non-existent in the jiu-jitsu world, that what do we do if the guy is striking? You'd have to be in a mixed martial arts class more so for that to happen. But that was my greatest recollections, or the unique part of back then is that Hickson was fighting, that Hoist was fighting, that the guys who came in from the outside, we'd have these guys come in who were getting ready to fight for the UFC or had fought in the UFC, and they were just complete and utter animals. They weren't friendly to you. It wasn't a you're my buddy thing back then. There was some ego and some girth to it. So these guys were, the crowd was aggressive. It was a different energy. And yeah, that was kind of my first early days, my first exposure to the Brazilians and the proper methods. Was at Hickson School, and it's quite a memory. I'm in West LA, on rare occasion, but when I'm there, I drive by that location. I go out of my way to drive past that location. Just east of the 10 freeway, and the location was so obscure. There was no sign on the road. You never knew. There's just a little alleyway in this road, and you drove down, up and over a little hill, and then down back to the back door. And then there was this karate school hidden in the back basement of this location, and that was where we did our training.
Now, I would love to have you address the humble beginnings, man, because you're talking about, again, Hicks and Gracie. You're talking on some of these names of these guys that you trained with back then. Everybody was, he was just starting in the U.S. He had just come into the U.S. then. And so, like you said, he was broke, didn't have any money, had to train in a karate school. He's kind of piggybacking off that. And you had the same experience. You kind of come from the farm, and then you get in a little taekwondo, and then start this jiu-jitsu thing. But you're seeing Hickson from the beginning, and then you're starting a school. And so, business owners, there's a lot of business owners listening to this podcast, and that's one of the things I we all have in common, right? Is we're starting from this place of, humble beginnings of this. We have nothing, and so we're kind of winging it. And I want you to talk about that part of your journey, man, and just how, whether it's jujitsu, whether it's business, you're kind of making it up as you go, right?
100%. We had no choice. I knew that when I opened my school that I wanted my school to be a jujitsu school, but there was no drive for jujitsu. There was really no emphasis anywhere on jujitsu. So we just did what we thought was best. And we certainly struggled when we opened. We didn't have any money. I didn't have any money. Like I said, we were training on two by four mats that were used that we Velcroed together, and that was our training surface. So, but those are looking back, those are the greatest. Those are the greatest parts of my journey. Those early days and being able to participate in class with Hickson teaching class when Hickson wasn't a known name, was not the grandfather of the sport, didn't have the any notoriety at all. So it was neat to be there back in that day and be part of that, and then be able to turn it into my own business. I had my 30-year anniversary of owning my school, June 1st of June of 2025 was my 30-year anniversary of owning my school. So it's been quite a journey, and lots of good times, lots of amazing memories. The people that I've met, having been involved in the beginning, it was so small that you had access to everybody. So if there was, you know, everybody came through John Jocks. When I finally made my way from John Jocks, I'm not sure exactly when I went from John Jocks or from Hickson's to John Jocks, but I competed at Blue Belt in early '97. I competed at Blue Belt in early '97 as a John Jock student, but when I transferred over and started training with John Jock, uh, it was just amazing because everybody in the sport would come through and train with John Jock because John Jock had not the legacy he has now, but he was in the process of building his own legacy. So just, Rico Rodriguez, UFC champion, trained there, and BJ Penn came multiple times, and I was fortunate enough to have a bunch of interactions with him in the early days, and when he was, I'm not sure if he was the champ at the time or had probably already been the champ and was kind of back in that phase, but it was certainly special times back in those early days. Certainly very special times.
Yeah, that's when you're doing it for just the love of doing it, right? And it's there's no glory in it.
There was no reward. The reward was is you had a sore back and you were pretty certain you could take a guy down in the street if you had to. Other than that, there was no real rewards. We loved wearing our Hicks and Gracie shirts, our John Jock shirts. We loved our tap out gear. Tap out gear back in the day meant you could fight. So we would always have our tap out gear and wear that with pride. That was certainly a thing back then, was wearing that tap out shirt or that tap out hoodie, and knowing you knew what it meant, whether the people that you crossed paths with knew or not. You knew wearing that shirt that you had a little bit of power in you. So we definitely took advantage of that feeling. So
Sort of that secret code like cauliflower ear, right? Guys who know.
yeah, absolutely.
I love it,
The
man.
the tap out shirt was the cauliflower ear of 1994.
Love it. Yeah. So you in that journey somewhere ran across Chuck Norris, got to do some training with him.
Oh man. I opened my school with Steve Cardenas. We opened in June of '95, shortly after, just a few months after I left my partnership with Steve and opened my own school in Canyon Country, California, which was across town from where I was with Steve. And so I opened my school in Canyon Country, and the first person who signed his kid up at my new location was a guy called Aaron Norris. And Aaron Norris signed the paper and wrote his name down and said he was employed by CBS for 25 years, and I didn't put it together that he was the executive producer of Walker, Texas Ranger. So the very first student that I ever signed up when I had my own academy and didn't have a partner was Aaron Norris. Aaron Norris, Tyler Norris. Happy birthday, Tyler. I sent you a message. I hope you saw it. I signed up Tyler Norris. He was about an 8-year-old kid at the time, and I remember saying to Steve Cardenas, man, actually, Steve Cardenas said to me after he saw the Tell Us About You form, the registration form that Aaron had filled out, he said, "Oh, Aaron Norris, that's Chuck's brother's name." And I go, "Oh, that's cool." And I took it and I put it in the file and didn't think anything of it. And about 4 months later, I was having a conversation with Aaron Norris, and I was like, "Well, you should come train with me sometime." And he said, "Oh, if I was going to train jujitsu, I'd probably train with John." And I was like, "John who?" And he's like, "John Machado." And I'm like, "How do you know John Machado?" And he goes, "Oh, well, he something something down there in Texas." And I go, "Are you Chuck Norris's brother?" And his wife said to me, "He is, and you shouldn't say anything to anybody." And so I ran inside. I said, "See that lady out there? See that guy out there? That's Chuck Norris's brother."
So you immediately just went and told everybody, huh? All right, you sweaty buggers. That liquid dripping off your forehead and down your back contains minerals that are critical for high performance. If you don't put those minerals back, you're not going to perform well. This is where Salty Electrolytes comes in. Salt contains 6 electrolyte minerals plus a touch of iodine to help you replenish after a hard workout. Salt is the only electrolyte supplement to pair every mineral with its counterpart, giving you the most robust mineral profile on the market, period. Head over to goearnyoursalt.com today to get some for yourself. Use the code GOEARNYOURSALT to get 15% off your first order. And now, my friends, go earn your salt.
I ran and told everybody, yeah, I couldn't hold it in me. I was from Brooklyn, Michigan. I was from a cornfield. I
Love it.
didn't know that there was a guy called Aaron Norris that would potentially come into my school. And so I was super excited to have that relationship or have Aaron Norris sign his kid up at my school. And Aaron had owned countless martial arts schools with his brother through the years, and so he was a good ally of mine. Still is a ally of mine, but was a gigantic ally of mine in the beginning, when no one else supported me, when I had no energy behind my name. Aaron Norris told people that I was a great human and a great martial artist, and they should support me. And he brought me people and really helped me get my business going and introduced me to people who became key people in my life. And that was through Aaron Norris. And that was my connection then, of course, to his brother. I was teaching his son for maybe 6 months, a short period of time. I was involved in a hokey pokey karate organization because I had just opened and I needed one. And that organization kind of fell to pots when the owner of the master instructor of that organization got in some legal trouble. So I distanced myself from that organization. Aaron Norris came into my school. I said, I just to let you know, I'm going to make some changes. And I thought it was important that he knew because he was my most important client at the time. And so I said, hey, this thing is important that you know that I'm in the middle of some changes right now. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm switching organizations and I'm gonna switch some things around. And he said, oh, I think it'll work out for you. You're in a good spot and blah 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 blah. And that's all he did. And he shook my hand and walked out the door. And I was like, that's cool. It's cool that I have his support. I didn't think anything of it. And it must have been 2 days later, he walked in and he said, I just want you to know that my brother has invited you to join his organization.
Oh,
So
wow.
at the time, I don't know if it's happened since, but he said to me, he said, my brother has invited you to join the organization, and I want you to know that nobody has ever been invited to join the organization. That people apply to join the organization, and he has invited you personally to join. And I'll be honest with you, it gives me chills right now because I know how fortunate I was to have a guy by the name of Aaron Norris sign his kid up at my school and not by the name of Aaron Morris because it wouldn't help so much. But Aaron Norris had some clout, and Aaron Norris turned into just my greatest ally, a huge supporter of me, and went on to support me for years and years and years. I trained his son for many years, 8 or 10 years, and like I said, he introduced me to some key people in my life that allowed me to become who I've become. So my introduction to Mr. Norris was because I was training his nephew, and I trained his nephew for, like I said, for many years, and Mr. Norris made me do the typical process of becoming a black belt in his system. If I recall, it took me about 2 years of training. I was driving to Redondo Beach an hour every Sunday, driving down there and participating in class with one of his senior students. And that was what then allowed me to get the black belt in the Chuck Norris system, wave the flag of the Chuck Norris system, and then progress from there.
So amazing, man. Yeah, you've been
Excuse me.
just by being in proximity of Los Angeles, right? You've had a lot of opportunity, but really,
Yeah,
you're
very,
you're good at
very
developing
fortunate.
relationships, is what I've seen and what I've observed.
Well, I think that the most important part is that we stay neutral. And there are so many people in the martial arts world, so many people in life and in business who want to put up barriers and want to, and I don't care what your political affiliation is. I don't care, your marital status or those things don't matter to me. I'm interested in you being a good person. And if you're a good person to me, I'm going to be a good person to you with everything I have. And I believe that's what's allowed me to have valuable relationships with some people who, um, seem very distant to have that relationship with, but staying neutral and not jumping on one side and having strong opinions. And it's benefited me in my business career. And I do everything I can. I try hard to stay neutral. I've had my moments, of course, being in Los Angeles and having the government shut me down and play games with me. I had my moments on social media where I voiced an opinion pretty loud and pretty bold, but for the most part, just staying neutral and staying in my lane, and that's been very beneficial to me. And yeah,
Yeah, man. So how did the transition to your promotions coming under Jean Jacques Machado?
in the recent past,
Yeah, we're
in
how
the
I
recent
guess I should ask
past,
that question, man.
well,
How many of your promotions uh, in jujitsu came through Jean Jacques?
everyone.
Everyone.
I have my blue belt came in early 97 and my fifth degree black belt came 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. 2 years ago I got my fifth degree, but I've gotten every single rank I've gotten in jiu-jitsu from John Jock. So, um, yeah, all my ranks have come from John Jock. I was the original affiliate school of all the Machado brothers. So of the five brothers, in I would say early 98, I was paying John Jock. I don't know if I was paying John Jock or paying the brothers, but I was paying to use the name Machado Jiu Jitsu in 1998. I still have the banner hanging in my shed at my academy that's got the old school green and yellow logo, the Machado Jiu Jitsu logo, and it says Dallas, Reseda, New York, Santa Clarita. And those were the four schools in the United States that were run under the Machado banner, and I had one of them, and I was the original guy. I think I paid John Jock a couple $100 a month to use the logo and to use the name. I don't think it helped me, but again, I was just looking for some clout in the industry because that in my field because that's who I was, that's who I wanted to be. And John Jock allowed me to use that logo, so I did. Um, Back to the question that you asked a minute or two ago, I was the original affiliate, but then had some challenges along the way with John Jock. So I have been in and out of my affiliation with John Jock twice. About 1 year ago, exactly 1 year ago, I rejoined, put the logo back on my academy, stopped using a different name that I was using, and started using the John Jock name. So this is where I belong. John Jock Machado Jiu Jitsu is who I am, and the greatest part of my journey overall is the fact that John Jock loves me, and John Jock has allowed me to be part of the affiliation again after he and I've had some personal challenges or business challenges through the years, that he allowed me to come back and be part of the organization. Um, I'm blessed, I'm absolutely blessed. Like I said, these are people at John Jocks I've trained with for 30 years. Many people there I've trained with for 30 years, and they're my closest of friends. People I absolutely love, Mark Armstrong, Felicia O, Jay Zabalos. These are fifth degree black belts, and we were all white belts together. And here we are, how many years later, and now we have all these stripes on our belts and all these bodily pains to go with it. And I'm fortunate, so fortunate that this was my path.
Okay, two things I want
I
to ask you
think.
about there, and I'm gonna
Mm,
type here for a sec because I want to make sure and get both of these. But one of the things was that reconciliation, man. You said you and John Jock kind of butted heads a bit there for a while, and maybe more than once. But you guys, it's not like that relationship ended and now you can't stand each other. You mended that, and so between the two of you working that out, man, what did that look like, and what can you give the audience as far as just, gosh, mending fences, man?
I'm going to tell you that the greatest stress I had in my life for 3 years was my relationship with John Jock. I had a period of time where I stressed every single day, and I'm not sure how much of this I exposed to John Jock 14 months ago when we had the conversation about me rejoining the organization. But I had an anxiety that I could never explain because here's the most important male in my life outside of family, and I have a challenged relationship with him. I didn't have, you know, it was the older brother relationship where we definitely had love for each other, but he wasn't scared of letting me know that he wasn't happy with some of my actions, I guess. I never I never countered any of the energies. I had people say things to me that I don't think they needed to be said or shouldn't have been said about what he thought of me or my actions, and I accepted it. You know what I mean? I didn't buy into it too deeply. I didn't have a conversation with anybody about it. I just stayed the course and told myself every single day for 3 years, John Jock is my jiu-jitsu instructor. And there's nothing more I need from him other than for him to teach me jujitsu. And if he wants to support me on social media, if he wants to show me love on the outside, if he want whatever those things, that doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. What matters is that I'm staying true to my path. I'm staying true to my instructor, and there are no flaws in that. And I believe as a martial artist, as a student martial artist with an instructor who outranks me in the art that I love, I have to be loyal to him and I have to be giving to his desires. And if his desires are outside the box, then maybe I'll walk away. But if he's staying inside the box and not shunning me or charging me more or whatever the elements are, then he's my jiu-jitsu instructor. And but honestly, 3 years, a heavy stress in my life for 3 straight years over the fact that my jiu-jitsu instructor, the person that was so important to me, there was a barrier. And there was definitely a barrier. And it was probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had in my life. To go to John Jock after having been an affiliate twice before and going to him and saying, John Jock, I need you. I need you. I'm not Premier Martial Arts. I am not a striker by trade. I am a jiu-jitsu guy, and I want jiu-jitsu on my sign. And I use Jay Zabalo as a mediator in the middle of it to kind of set up the situation because I didn't want to go to John Jock and have him turn me down or tell me that I told you you would never be an affiliate again. And so that was my biggest fear, was to go to him and say, John Jock, I want to be affiliate, and have him just say no. So I went to Jay Zabalos and was like, Jay, this is my situation and this is where I'm at. And I know there's been some tension in the past, but I want to be an affiliate. I want to wave the John Jock flag, and warms my heart at the highest level that when I went to see him and talk to him about it, I had an expectation. Um, and my expectation was is that he was going to give me a 3 out of 10. And when I sat down with him, he gave me a 33 out of 10, and tears flowed down my face. And I was blessed again to know that he would allow me to come back and be his affiliate. And hearing what he had to say to me after having had so much tension or so much pain in my heart for 3 years over my relationship with John Jock, and now to sit down with him in his office and have him expose what he really thought of me. And man, I tears flowed down my face, and all I could do was hug him and tell him thank you for the kind words, the support for 30 years, 31 years of constant support, 30 years of constant support. And man, he's such an ally to me and such a friend to me. I tell him on the regular how much I love him and send him direct messages and make sure he knows that I have that true appreciation for him, because I, I, I didn't, you know, Santa Clarita didn't have to be on this shirt, but he
Yeah.
allowed me to do that after tensions. And like I said, I think the most important thing in business when we have tensions or we have fallouts or we have miscommunications is just stay true to who it is you are, and don't get caught up in the nonsense, because the nonsense is going to drive you further left or further right, where you could have just stayed straight and stayed cool with everybody. And that's really what I tried to do, even when the tensions were high, or when I felt tensions were high. Whether he felt it or not, I had no idea. But I did hear some things through some other people, whether he said them or not, whether doesn't matter. But at the time, it hurt me, and I just, like I said, tried to stay true to the fact that John Jock was my jujitsu instructor. He wasn't
What
my brother. He wasn't my.
I wanted
Go
you to
ahead.
finish what you were going to say, but I have a question. Uh,
Yeah, he just, that I just had to keep in mind. Like I said, he's my jujitsu instructor. There's nothing more that I have from him other than to go learn jujitsu from him. And one day when things work out, I'll get a stripe on my belt, or just stay true to it and stay focused on jujitsu. And that's what I really tried to do. It's what I really tried to do.
yeah,
So,
you mentioned it twice in that last session there, where you mentioned how other people said that he said, basically it's gossip,
right,
right? And,
right,
I've always in my businesses, I with employees, I will define gossip as taking any complaint horizontal or below. You can only take complaints up. And that's the rule. And if anything you say causes another person to their view of me or someone else in the company, causes their opinion of them to diminish, that's gossip. And I fire them for it, and so my question to you is, having experienced this, man, like you said, you didn't know what Jean-Jacques was really thinking because you heard it from other people. But then that caused something in you, man, that was like painful and you dealt with for a long time. But then you go to Jean-Jacques and he goes, no, man, everything's cool. I give you, as you said, the 33 out of
well,
10.
I think that was a few years of smoothing out. You know what I mean? Um, uh, there was a specific incident that I'll prefer to not talk about, but there was a specific incident that I believe allowed me to remend my relationship with John Jock. Um, a situation happened, and that situation, I think, made John Jock have a little bit of turned his head towards me, like, hey, hey, hey. And I think that was the beginning of healing. And it was maybe 6 months after that incident that I asked him to be his affiliate, and then maybe 4 months. But that moment or that situation where there was some healing took place, it was right then that I started saying to myself, I need to go ask him to be an affiliate again. I need to put this logo back on my sign. I need, you know, I John Jock Jiu Jitsu is who I am. John Jock Machado Jiu Jitsu is who I am. Why can't I fly that flag? So it was that mending that happened because of another person that then allowed me or gave me a little more comfort in going to John Jock and saying, hey, I want to be an affiliate again.
Yeah, I love it, man, because you're talking about how, yeah, you heard this, there were some hurts involved, but then you went to the correct people. You went to Jay, and you as an intermediary, and kind of you just stayed the course, dude. I'm so impressed with that. How you didn't let these things continue to you didn't continue to have that speculative head talk where you're beating him up. you were reconciling it for years, before you finally came to that place of like, okay, I'm not gonna sit here and dwell on this thing. I'm gonna go to him and we're gonna get this thing sorted out. I think that's cool as crap.
Overcoming that obstacle with a guy like John Jock isn't easy. Um, it's very uncomfortable to sit down with John Jock to talk about anything business oriented. Maybe not just John Jock, but my jujitsu instructor, and John Jock is Brazilian. I'm not. And the thought process is a little different. So I think anytime you're dealing with those elements, it's challenging. And I stepped into an environment that was, I guess, in my mind, potentially hostile. And the beauty of it is it ironed out. It
Yeah.
worked out. And John Jock is my brother, and John Jock answers my calls and answers my texts and supports me in everything that I do. So I'm very fortunate that that's the way it worked out. But I think that the key here, if there's somebody listening, just stay good with people. Don't burn the bridge, because you don't know. There were times when I was like, I need to go train somewhere else. I need to go train somewhere where I have support at the highest level from the top guy. And like I said, there was no reason for me to think I didn't have the support from John Jock, but there was definitely a little tension at the time. And do I go train with this person, or do I go train with this person, or do I just stay true to the fact that if I want my students to be loyal to me, I have to wave the flag of loyalty. There's no way I can get mad at a guy or be disappointed with somebody for going and training at a gym across town if I just did the same thing. Whether my excuse was legit or whether my situation warranted that action, it's the wrong thing to do. And I am so happy that today, when I'm letting my students have it, that I can talk about loyalty. When you've paid
Right.
a guy 30 years, 12 months a year for 30 continuous years to the cost of $100,000, I can let you have it about loyalty and tell you how the truth of it. So that
So
to me
good,
is
man.
so important, that I have that loyalty still.
But you said something else there just now that really hits home with me, and that's that when you're letting your students have it, because Jean Jacques has probably let you have it at times. And sometimes, we have a leader in our life and they give us the truth. That truth can sting, man. And then we have to contend with it, right? There's that whole, gosh, I'm mad now. I'm
Absolutely.
upset. I don't think it was just. But over time, I think we start to realize that, crap, sometimes those things that sting are the truth. And we can grow if we just listen to it.
Well, he's a real master. John Jock is not a master of jujitsu. John Jock's a master of his energy. John Jock's a master of his life. And now I look back at the way things went down, and it's perfect. That was God's plan. God's plan was that I struggled. God's
Hmm.
plan was that I didn't get things the day I thought I should get it. I had to wait. I waited. I don't know. I must have been 2 years past my due date for my fifth stripe on my black belt. It was a long time to the point it was driving me nuts. Um, but all I could do is stay true to the course, not mention it, and just keep training, because it wasn't going to help. Wasn't going to help going to John. When I go to John Jock and ask him when I'm going to get promoted. I don't think that's going to help much. So just stay true to the course, and here I am. Next week marks 22 years at black belt, 31 years of jujitsu training, 31 plus years of jujitsu training, and almost every one of those years with John Jock. And not much more I can ask for. Truly, not much more I can ask for as far as what my path was as a professional or as a businessman or as an athlete. It's a spectacular path with a spectacular person, with spectacular people, with a legacy that comes out of John Jocks. We had the best academy in the nation from 1998 to 2004. That was the place to train. 2005, that was the place to train. We
Yeah.
had 50 people on the mat every 12 o'clock class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. 40 or 50 people on the mat at noon. 15, 18 black belts at noon. Just a powerhouse of a class. And that all the entire energy was nothing more than John Jock. John Jock showing an energy that made us all so attracted to it that we just wanted it. I wanted John Jock's energy. I wanted John Jock's calm. I wanted John Jock's prowess on the mat. I wanted his communication ability. One of the most amazing recollections I have of John Jock was as we were trying to put together a film, and John Jock was going to play in the film that I wrote, No Rules. John Jock was going to play the number one bad guy. So John Jock in No Rules was ultimately Randy Couture played the role, but John Jock, we scheduled John Jock to play that role. So we trained one day and we're done training, and this is like I said, 2004 we shot the film. I'd say 2003 we were putting things together for pre-production, and I can remember sitting in John Jock's office in 2003 after training. We finished training at 1:30, and John Jock fought the copy machine for at least 50 minutes. The copy machine would not copy. The copy machine, everything said it was in line to do what it was supposed to do, but we couldn't make a copy, and we're trying to copy a 93-page script. And John Jock tried, I would say, for 50 minutes to make the copy machine work, and he never one time showed any frustration whatsoever. He sat there as calm as he could be for 50 straight minutes after training, before lunch, hungry, and never showed an emotion. Just stayed as straight as an arrow. David, I don't know why this isn't working. And I'm like, dude, I'm gonna smash the thing. I don't know about you, but I'm already take this thing and throw it over the ledge. And he just stayed as calm as he could be. And that was such an amazing lesson for me to watch this man at 30 years old. I don't know how old he was. Maybe we were 30. With his daughter, who was very challenged. And to see him just stay in that state of peace and calm and stay centered was one of the greatest lessons I've ever had from him. To watch him stay that calm under so much pressure. And it was simple pressure, but 99.9% of the people I know would have started cursing about minute 3, and then cursed all the way through, whether you got it done or not. You would have cursed all the way through, and he just never showed an emotion. And that to me was such an amazing recollection of who he was, to see him operate at that level and just like nothing was wrong. And that's who John Jock is. John Jock went through a divorce maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I remember talking to him in the middle of it, and he was calm. He was not flustered by it. I'm sure he was hurt, but there was no show of being flustered. There was no show. He just stayed on center and calm. And I was like, damn, I need that in my life. I need that trust in the energies that surround me, that it's going to be okay. And that's really the energy that John Jock has, is it's going to be okay. And it's special. It's a special energy. And I've
Cool
done
that
everything I can to take that on in my own life.
It's so cool to me that you said that's one of the most valuable lessons you ever took from your jiu-jitsu instructor, was a totally non-jiu-jitsu related thing, right? It's the patience and under stress and not losing it. Uh, yeah, man. I think of my jiu-jitsu instructor, and you and I have talked about it in the past, but he passed away in 2022. But there's that thing he told me one time, and I was overtraining, man. I was working hard. I was working 12-hour days, and I'd come in before work, and then I'd come in after work, and I was doing these 2-a-days, and at one point he noticed something in me, and he's like, dude, I want you to get off the mat and go home and get some sleep. You're screwing this up so bad that I can see it in you. And at that moment, he was my coach. And he was a loyal friend, and now it made me mad. I was like, "What do you mean go home? Like I want to be here." And I said, "Can I sit on the sideline and watch?" And he says, "No, man, you can't. You need to leave the gym. You're going home and come back a different day, and we'll get this thing put together." And sure enough, man, I went home, had a good night's sleep, came back a couple days later, could do the move that I was struggling with so hard, but it was that lesson that was it was jujitsu related, but that was a coach, man. That was a guy challenging me, saying, "Hey, you're not ready right now, and you need to take care of these other things first." And man, it was something I had to contend with, and it ticked me off at the time, but I saw the value of it later, and then I try to now take that and use that toward my employees or my kids or guys I coach, and now it's beautiful stuff.
I think I think the most amazing lessons that we get from jujitsu aren't necessarily things that we see in the moment or don't agree with in the moment, and then when the time passes, you're like, damn, that was spot on. That was spot on. That the timing was perfect. I talked about my fifth degree black belt. I don't know the exact time frame on how based on the IBJJF time frames, maybe I was 18 months, 20 months, 22 months past due for that rank. And then as soon as I got promoted, I was like, it was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Couldn't have been done better. It taught me, I took myself back when I was in that phase of, am I ever going to get promoted again? What did I do wrong? Should I be doing something different? I can't train any harder. I'm doing everything I can. It was when I did get promoted, it just all made sense. And I tell my students that today, that I promoted a guy 2 hours ago. I gave my student a purple belt, and I'm sure that student who'd been with me for 5.5 years has watched a couple of other people get promoted and was, why am I not getting promoted? I can tap that guy out. I can tap that guy out. And then today he's probably say there today when he gets to work and settles in, and he'll be like, oh, that was perfect timing. That was absolutely how it was supposed to happen. And I think
Yeah.
that that's one of the great lessons that we have in jujitsu, is to know that somebody else is in charge, and we have to sit there and accept what they see and say, because that they're your instructor.
Yeah.
You know,
They see things you don't see, right? They have a different big picture
hundred
view.
percent, 100%. And I see different things that than my students see.
Right.
I promote based on things that the student may not think I'm promoting on. But we see those things as instructors, and I'm glad that my instructor saw that in me and allowed me to maximize my potential and understands how to properly manipulate my mind, if you will, so that I can maximize my potential.
Oh, give me an example. What is something that you would look for in a student? Because guys, this applies to
Man,
employees and businesses too, right? Sometimes a promotion in a business is
yeah,
based on something you may not really understand at the time.
10,000 hours is a steep mountain to climb to become a master, especially when the task at hand puts a relentless demand on your body. There is nothing casual about this sport. It's all in, all effort, all focus. It takes a lot from you, but the reward is unmatched. Mastery of oneself, an acute understanding of your weaknesses with an explosive sense of your strengths. Being able to complete the climb to mastery requires the proper nutrition. This is why it's important to take in a potent blend of electrolytes that is in tune with your output and brings strength to your goals. This potent blend is only found in Salt Electrolytes. Salt targets your depleted electrolyte levels with a boost of hydration and health. It gives your body the baseline recovery it needs.
you know, the number one thing for me in the promotion of a student is sacrifice. I want to know that you sacrificed at the level I did. Like I said, I drove an hour and a half one way to train at Hicks and Gracie's Academy in 1995 or whatever, 95. I drove an hour and a half one direction. I sat still. That was a 30-mile commute that took me an hour and a half. I sat still. I drove 4 miles an hour up and over the hill for years. So that to me, I lost my train of thought there, Riley. I don't know where we're going with that.
Oh, just as far as what you're looking for to promote a student.
Oh, so I know the sacrifice that I made when I was driving up and over that hill and paying $250 a month to train in 1995. I know the sacrifice that I was making, and so when I look at my students today, if I have a student who doesn't have kids, who works 40 hours a week, and he's showing up 15 minutes late for class, I don't know. That's probably not going to help the cause. If you're a father of two and your wife doesn't work and you're coming into class on time, you're there 4 days a week, and I know how hard it is for you to get out of the house. I'm definitely making some mental notes that you're going up and beyond the call because your wife is bitching at you to be at home and you're telling her that your sanity needs to go to jujitsu. And so I know the sacrifice that you made to be there is great. And those are probably my favorite students ever, are those guys who just are 100% committed. And they'll wake up at 4:30 in the morning and run a jackhammer all day. They get off work at 5 o'clock, and at 6:30 they're in the gym. It's like, you ran a jackhammer all day. Your sacrifice is absolutely phenomenal.
That's
You
right.
went
Yeah.
home, you could have showered and jumped in bed, and you showered and put your gi on. And I have a lot of respect for those guys. I've had, studio workers who come in after long days at the studios. Studio workers can work 14 and 16-hour days, and it's not normal. And have these guys work 14-hour days and walk in, straight from the job, and I'm gonna get my training before I go home. It's like, wow, your sacrifice is incredible, and that needs to be rewarded. Certainly not prematurely, but I'm recognizing that sacrifice more than I'm recognizing anything else. As an instructor, I'm recognizing sacrifice. And like I said, I know how much I sacrificed to make it work.
Oh,
So
that segues really nicely into another question I had for you, because you had mentioned Jay and and a few of the names I didn't know, but some of the fifth degrees that you were white belts with, right? That, dude, when you're talking about something that you've been involved with for 30 years, 31 years, you said, how many people gave up early and are no longer training, right? How many people have you seen over those years, would you estimate?
nobody that started before me is still there. I'm the last standing guy. Scott, John Jock's fifth degree black belt. Scott, I believe, I'm blank for his last name. Scott probably started at John Jock's a minute before me. We can't really put the exact date we started on, but outside of Scott, who got his fifth degree black belt the same day I did, I've seen everybody pass. I am John Jock's longest running student, and I hold the fifth degree black belt, which is his highest ranking in-house student. So, I've seen a lot of people come and go, and I've seen a lot of people's dreams go down the drain. I've seen people who are, not just in the training environment at John Jock's, excuse me, but in my own academy. And I have these people come in who they change their life in 6 months of training, or 8 or 10 months, or a year of training. They eat better, they sleep better, they communicate better, their relationships better. They got a promotion at their job, everything's good. They gave up alcohol. They have so many things going their direction, and then they quit. And when they quit, what I say is, the minute you walk off the mat is the minute you lose your power. I truly do believe that jiu-jitsu is a superpower, and I believe that I have that superpower. But I also know that the day I walk off the mat and I quit, my superpower is no longer part of me. That my 31 years, if my train that I had this morning is my last training session of my life, tomorrow I don't have my same power. I don't have the same calm. I don't have the same focus. I don't have the same relationships with my friends. My friends don't have the same respect for me. And the list goes on and on and on. So for me, it's the most important thing I have is that John Jock told me probably 1997 or 1998, get better in jiu-jitsu, you will get better in life. And those words to me ring in my ear weekly, if not multiple times a week. I hear those words that John Jock said, and he only said that to me once. I don't think I've ever heard him say it again. If I have, I don't recall directly, but he did say, and he said it directly to me, that if you get better in jiu-jitsu, you will get better in life. And that was so important to me to continue to better myself in life, and jiu-jitsu was my platform. Jiu-jitsu was my outlet, and the method at which I could use to get better. And what an amazing run. I mean, look I'm here with you. I took you tuna fishing. You caught a couple big tuna, and I wouldn't have had that without my jiu-jitsu. This guy outfished me. I'm pissed. Everybody outfished me that day. I took 8 people fishing. We were gone for 2 days. This guy catches two fish that are 80 pounds apiece, and I got a little football the next day. Didn't even catch one that night. I had to wait till the next afternoon and finally caught a football at 4 in the afternoon, and he's sitting on 200 pounds of fish.
Well, to be
Everybody
fair,
on the boat had to fish
I
with
love
me
that you're
that
building
day.
me up more than it was, but mine were 40 and 50 pounds. They weren't 80, but
Yeah,
but it was
that was
still an
80
awesome
compared to
experience.
mine because mine. Yeah, I have a great video. I have a great video of you pulling your fish in. I have a great video of you pulling that fish, and my buddy Pat shot the video and was talking you through it. And what a spectacular experience that was, huh?
So
Catching
cool.
tuna in the middle of the night, 100 miles offshore when the rest of the world is sleeping.
Oh, that was such a cool experience, man. Yeah, the highlight of my year for sure, going and doing that with you guys. And
We're going May 17th. Do you want to go?
I will not be available then. I'm going to be down in Texas at an event. So,
I didn't want you to go anyway.
dude,
We're going May 17th, man.
oh my gosh, I do want to make another one of those
May
happen, though.
17th.
Are you
All right. Well, the following year you can join us.
tell me something, because I want you to give advice on this pushing through thing, because I mean you've done a lot of other things in that 30 years that you've been in this jiu-jitsu journey, but you've always kept that as constant. And dude, you guys can't see it. Dave's wearing a hoodie, but he said he's turning 60 this year, and Dave still has abs, man. And so talk about this, just consistency, and give us some advice on staying consistent.
I think the biggest challenge that I hear from other people is that it's hard to get there. It's hard to get. My body hurts. My mind, mine too. Mine too. My approach to jujitsu always goes back to what I just said. Get better in jujitsu, get better in life. And that's all I want, man. I struggle with myself as a human, maybe just like everybody else struggles with themselves on being the good person, on being a good husband, on being a good father, on being a good businessman, about having proper communication, all those things. And to me, I know I operate better today because I trained this morning. Did I train hard this morning? No. I trained with my female black belt who's 50 years old, and I trained with her for 20 minutes. But I know I felt better because of that train, and I continue to push myself whether I feel like it or not. My personal routine is 6 days a week. I am on the mat no matter what, 6 days a week. I train through a headache. I train through tired. I've always trained through sore. I trained through my injuries in the 31 years that I have in jiu-jitsu. I've never taken a break longer than 7 days. Somebody said to me yesterday, "Don't you feel better when you take a month off?" And I was like, "Oh man, I know I would feel better if I took a month off, but I think I would struggle so bad as a human that I'm not interested." And I say it all the time that my goals far outweigh my bodily pains. My goals far outweigh my bodily pains, and my goals are to be a good human. I have 3 kids downstairs, my wife, my business, and to be a good human and to be the proper person in these environments, and I guess to be a martial artist, to be a jujitsu guy, to have some Jean-Jacques qualities. That's so important to me, and the only way I can achieve that is by continuing to train. I know that if I stop training, my growth changes, and I'm very conscious of the physical me. Going back to what you said a minute ago, I'm very conscious of the physical me. I'm conscious of what I eat, what I drink. No alcohol in my life. I was drinking many years ago when I started jiu-jitsu, and it was just a big crutch in the process. So I haven't had a beer in 10 years. But it allows me to continue to get on the mat every day and push, because I don't have that negative feeling from a Saturday night on Monday or a Sunday afternoon on Monday. I don't have that negative feeling. Allows me to go in and push and still stay at my physical best. I'm It's important to me to be at my physical best. I believe that my physical best allows me to carry the flag a little higher in my emotional being, and I think everybody feels that way, and I think it's probably why most people are addicted to jiu-jitsu is it allows you to have that calm and have you be better on the outside and be better with your kids and your wife and your business, and so many challenging energies in our world today, and jujitsu kind of neutralizes those energies and keeps things real and keeps things true. So,
And you,
that's my approach.
I like it a lot. You said something in there about you trained through headaches and you trained through injuries. And I imagine, and you tell me, because again, I want your advice on this. I want you to give the audience some advice. When you're training with a headache, in jiu-jitsu especially, man, you're getting crushed by another person, or you're training with an injury. How did you do that? Because you're not training at full capacity. What does that look like?
You know, my approach to this has always been I'm getting on the mat. Getting on the mat. I didn't want to train today. I didn't want anything to do with training today. My wife called me and said we have an issue with my daughter and blah blah blah, and I said I'm training. That was all I said. I'm training. I got to stay here. I'm training. And like I said, I didn't train hard, but I put myself through the motions. And I believe that's why I'm in the shape that I'm in at 60 years old, is because that I refuse to quit at 59. I refuse to quit. I refuse to take a break. And I'm serious about the process that around jujitsu, about the amount of water I drink. Thank God for salt electrolytes. I knew I was dehydrated, and this isn't a sell on a product by any means, but that is the only product I've ever taken in my entire life on a consistent basis is the salts that you make, and they've done wonders for me for keeping my hydration, and keeping myself healthy. But what the water I drink, the salt intake, proper foods, high protein, low fat, low sugar, no alcohol, and when you put those things together, you fuel the body pretty well, and you're able to push through a lot of those things that maybe you weren't able to push through if you were eating a bunch of fried foods and nasty foods and drinking sodas, and that stuff just works against you. I think when you're 25, your diet doesn't matter. I watch my 14-year-old son eat, and then he goes and plays basketball at a high level. I'm like, how in the heck can you do that? For me, I need proper foods. I can't have a Pop-Tart and go train. That's just not going to work. So I need some eggs and some proper protein and some good fuel in my body. So that's
Beautiful.
kind of the most important elements there.
Yeah, if you're Dave, if you're training with a specific injury, how do you adapt? Okay, this is for athletes. This is for people trying to achieve anything, right? Sometimes, man, we walk with a limp. We got something going on, and how do you adjust your training?
I always have simply trained around my injuries. I have arthritis in my wrist right now. I can't pick up a skillet with my left hand. There's no way in the world I could grab a skillet and pick it up with my left hand because the arthritis in my wrist is so bad, and my thumb, my wrist is terrible. I wrap my wrist 6 weeks ago. I trained hard on a Friday. 6 weeks ago, I got done training. I went to the mall, and my entire left arm was numb. Not from nerves, but from the pain that was coming out of my wrist from the arthritis, and thinking that I could still push through. And I went to, like I said, my whole arm was numb for 2 or 3 hours. That was 6 weeks ago. I haven't played on top for more than 60 seconds in 6 weeks. Only playing guard, not framing with my left hand, only using my left hand, and making adjustments as necessary. Maybe I'll get some stem cell. Maybe I'll find a proper cure, and I can and get back to using that wrist one day. But I laugh with my students and talk about, man, I'm gonna have a good guard when this is over. The
So
guard's gonna improve because can't play on top.
that's a beautiful thing you just said, man. And for our non-jujitsu friends here, to say he has a good guard, that means he's getting good at playing on the bottom and keeping keeping a defensive posture, while being injured, not being able to take the top position and fight from the top. So sometimes what you're saying, it sounds like, is the consistency of just being on the mat. Even if you're in a disadvantageous position, you can hone the skill of that disadvantageous position.
100%. I was telling my students the other day, they were asking about my wrist. We were talking about injuries. And I said to my student the other day that my butterfly guard was a right-sided sweep. My right leg was the hooking leg for a butterfly sweep. I hurt my knee 28 years ago. I only do butterfly sweeps with the left side now. It switched my game altogether because I'm a butterfly guard guy. I'm a John Jock student. John Jock's a butterfly guard guy. I play butterfly guard. My butterfly guard was loaded with the right leg, ready to sweep you to your right. 4 years, 5 years, I hurt my knee. I couldn't sweep to the right anymore. And now I'm way more comfortable using my left leg as my power leg to throw the guy over because the injury forced me to change my approach. But I think if, and probably like yourself or any long term jiu-jitsu guy, injuries will tell you which direction you have to go. You can stop training because of that injury, or I'm going to take a month off, or you can make adjustments. And I've always found it better for me to make adjustments and train around the injuries versus stopping and starting to fight with my kids, or having road rage because I wasn't on the mat that day. No road rage, but I won't kick the neighbor's dog.
Yeah, there you go. Helps keep sane. I think that's a big overlooked thing with just exercise in general, right? Is the calming that comes with it. I think it's good for your nerves, man. I think it just kind of gets that staleness out of us, and doesn't even matter what kind.
The days that I don't exercise, or the days that I don't move, I just feel different, and I have life when I train. When I get up, I prefer to train in the morning because I think it opens us up and gives us that energy early. I prefer to train in the morning. I don't very often train after 12 noon. And I just feel good through the day, You wake up strong and you feel better, but it's so good for you. I think that I realized during COVID potentially what my attraction to jujitsu was, and I don't know if anybody in the jiu-jitsu world feels this way other than me, but when COVID came and they told me I couldn't have contact with anybody, I didn't train for a few days, and I don't ever take breaks. And so in those 4 or 5 days that I didn't train, I really started feeling empty. And I found my way back to the mat on day 4 or 5. We trained right out here in my backyard with a guy who was brave enough to do it on day 4 or 5. And I never looked back after that. But I realized when they told me, or when we had that 6 month period of time where we weren't supposed to have contact with anybody or keep that 6 foot distance, it made me realize the value of jujitsu, unique to any other athletic activity, is that when I hug my kids, I feel good. When I hug my wife, I feel good. When I see my friends at the mall and I give them a hug, I feel good. We're in the most contact oriented environment you could be in, and we're in that environment for an hour. And I think that body contact is such a positive exchange of energy that there's nothing that can match it. If you're wrestling, you're in the same. If you're playing judo, potentially, but jujitsu, we're body to body, and there's such a value in that exchange of good energy. And I think at COVID, it really came to my attention that it was that contact that I don't get anywhere else. And yeah, I hug my kid and my wife, but we're not in contact. I don't hug my kids for an hour. But and I think it's part of the reason we have a good attraction or a good feeling towards people. I trained with you. We didn't know each other. We train. We have a great exchange of energy. You give me your good. I give you my good. Man, there's a connection there. And
Yeah, for real.
you keep that and you feel that. It's, you're not pumping iron and looking across the gym and giving a guy a peace sign. You're having a physical battle with somebody. And, it's a guy walked into my school 4 weeks ago to sign up, Peter Guerrero. And he walked in and he said, "Oh, hey, my name's Peter." And we shook hands. And I looked at him and I went, "I know you." And he goes, "I do know you from about 18 years ago." And I'm exactly, we trained. We trained. And he's exactly, we trained one time, 18. And I remember, had I saw that guy at the mall or, cross paths with him, but I trained with him. I had a physical exchange with him. And that physical exchange stays with you. And as soon as I caught eyes with him, I'm like, I know this guy. I don't, never talked to him. I don't think, never had a conversation with him. But we slapped hands. We had a great interaction, and that stays with you. And he was shocked that I remembered him as I was at that school visiting as a black belt, and he was a new student at the time. But that's a couple of the things that I've seen over the course of time where I've come to the realization over time that are so valuable. That contact, I think, is second to none. The contact that we have with people and that exchange of energy.
Well, I think we get that from a lot of places, right? Because I definitely hear what you're saying about jiu-jitsu, but I felt it too. Like if we're like a couple of the guys that work with me, employees of mine, man, sometimes we're going through the battle together, man. And that you see that with soldiers and stuff too, right? Those guys who have fought together, and you're just in thick of it, and man, it helps you just link arms. It's like, man, we're a team now, and there's something about that that's really
Hmm.
powerful for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found I work a little bit in the stunt community, and I find that in the stunt community when I was reintroduced and started doing some work a few years back, I realized the connection that those guys have because it's very unique. Like jujitsu, when you and I train, it's a life or death thing where, your life is in my hands and mine's in yours. And the same is very true in that stunt industry. But then that's why these guys are so close because
Right.
there's so much at stake and there's so much love for the fact that you're there for me and I'm going to be there for you. And like you said, but yeah, I think that's a unique part of it.
It kind of boils down to what you're saying. It sounds like it's trust, right? If you've got a hold of my
It
neck, I
is
have to trust that
100%.
you're going to let go of it when I tap.
I
If you're
hope
jumping
so.
off a building, you have to trust that
Mhm.
the dude who
There's a
put that
lot.
pad
Yeah.
down there for you to land on, put it in the right
Hmm.
spot. You
The guy that started you on fire is going to put you out.
That's right. That's right.
Important. Hmm.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. And I think jujitsu does that for sure. But yeah, I want to switch gears here, man, because you're a businessman too. And I think this is probably because we're jujitsu guys, we're talking about jujitsu a lot. But I want to talk to you. I want to kind of pick your business mind here a little bit. You started your school 30 years, 25 years ago? 25 years ago, you said.
30.
Um,
30.
okay, 30. When you started that, you had mentioned several times that you had these, hardwood floor and then just a tiny little mat space. I want you to speak to that if you would, just that when you're starting out, it's easy to want to start out too big, right? We see at times people will go out and they want to start a handyman service and they'll buy $100,000 pickup truck to go do that with, and I just cringe, man. I'm just like, oh, dude, you're gonna fail because you went too big too fast. You know, you overextended the amount of income you're gonna be able to produce there for a while. So could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's nothing, I heard it early on in my day was that there's nothing better than a growing business. Nothing greater than a business that's growing. And if you open a karate school and you're 150,000 deep, it's going to be hard, you're going to have to catch up to that. I'm not saying you can't because many people do, but I think that there's great value in starting small and allowing that growth to happen over time so you don't pinch yourself. You're a businessman, you're a successful businessman, and I'm sure that's the way you did it because if you do it in any other way, you're chasing the cat, you're chasing that big initial investment. And, I like the conservative approach to what I do. I have a, a fairly small academy, 2,300 square feet. It's not big, it's not fancy, but it's easy to maintain. It's easy to make the mortgage and keep it going. I'm not struggling to make that happen in any way, shape, or form. I pay $2,300 a month in Los Angeles and I own the property. So, that's a win, but I won in that respect because I played so conservatively. I didn't go out and I've never had a big fancy place. I very conservative. My rent has always been low. Now that I own, my mortgage is low and it keeps it easier. It makes it so much easier. I think that so many people died in COVID because during COVID because their rents were so high. They got a $6,000 rent, a $7,000 rent. Now you got to maintain that when you don't have an income or your income got slashed by 60%. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah, and sometimes in business we never know when that slash is coming, right? The COVID's a prime example of that. You're
I'm ready. I'm ready for it at any moment. That's why I
yeah,
live so conservatively because I'm scared to death. I've always said I'm scared. I live in fear. In my business mind, I live in fear because I don't know what tomorrow brings. I'm self-employed. I drive conservative vehicles. I've always driven. I've never spent more than $20,000 on a car in my life because I'm going to be conservative. I'm not going to go out and extend myself to the point where I can't make it if everything goes south tomorrow. I might go out and do something funny tonight and the whole town knows about it and my whole school quits. I don't know. You never know what's going to happen.
don't
So it
do
is
that.
New Year's Eve. I get crazy. I get crazy on New Year's, I get crazy. Bed by 9:15,
Yeah, it's funny because when this comes out here, it'll be a couple months from now, probably when it actually airs. But we're recording on New Year's Eve here, so
Yes, sir.
for the
Here we
audience
are.
sake. Um,
We're all fired
yeah,
up.
you had mentioned my friend Jeremy that came down there with me when we came to the Jean Jacques thing, that seminar. Jeremy mentioned that he'd had a talk with you, and he has since he moved to Texas and he opened up a jiu-jitsu school of his own. And
Oh,
he has cited things you said to him several times about this, starting small, starting conservative, working your way
mm,
into it. And I don't know if you know that, man. I kind of wanted to just tell you,
I
but
didn't know that.
he
No, that's
was,
great.
yeah, he's I think a month into the school right now, and he's in those beginning pains of, hoping students show up and getting it going, but
Nice,
he's
good
been
for
smart
him.
about it.
In what city is that?
He is in White House, Texas. Yeah, I actually had him.
Sounds like a
You may be
cornfield to
interested.
me.
What's that?
I said it sounds like a cornfield to me.
Yeah, it's I don't know much about White House myself, but it's outside of Tyler, just a little outside of Tyler, kind of between Tyler and
Okay.
Dallas. So it's about an hour and a half. I take it from Dallas, but he's on a
My
previous
wife said,
episode.
"Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah,
I'll take a look at it."
yeah. I'll have to have you look because he, like I said, he's mentioned you a few times on there.
Nice.
When you're doing this stuff, you mentioned stunts, and you've been on the Yellowstone series. You've been on you did some filming last fall for the 1923 series. Last fall or last spring? I think it was actually last spring, wasn't it?
About a year ago. It's about 1 year
Yeah.
now.
Um, Stunts, man. It blows my mind because when I first met you and you and I were having this conversation about some of the things you've done, I'm like, how can one human have done so many things, right? You made your own movie, the No Rules it's called. You've been in these other larger productions. You're around that world a lot. Um, what what was the transition to that like? How'd you get involved? Business owners, I want to talk to you for a second. Do you have a retail space inside your location? If so, I want you to think about something. Your customers are buying electrolytes. You know that, right? The problem is they're not buying them from you. Well, Salty Electrolytes can help fix that with their wholesale program. They can bring these sales to you in-house so that your customers get the electrolytes they love from the company they love, you. All you have to do is head over to goearnyoursalt.com and scroll to the bottom of the page and click Apply for Wholesale. Do it now before you forget. I know your type, I'm one of you. Once again, that's goearnyoursalt.com. The link is at the bottom of the homepage. There will also be a link in the description on this video. And now, my friends, go earn your salt.
I moved to Los Angeles to partake to try to do some film work or some acting work actually, and that's how I when I co-wrote the script No Rules. It was the first mixed martial arts film ever made with Jerry Anderson. We wrote that with the intention of me playing the character and being an avenue for myself because I had been out auditioning and hadn't really put anything together. I did a film called Orgasmo, was Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the South Park creators. So I played a role in their film called Orgasmo. That was my first victory, I guess, in the auditioning process, and had about a week or 10 days on Orgasmo. That was a great experience, and I fell in love with the process. And Aaron Norris, who I spoke of earlier, Aaron Norris told me that if I wanted to succeed in Hollywood, I needed to own something. So that was when I started writing. I immediately started writing with Jerry Anderson, and we wrote the script, No Rules, and that was written for me. And then Aaron Norris's close friend, Michael DiLorenzo, stepped up and found the money for us and became the executive producer, and we produced that film. So it was a lot of years of auditioning and taking acting classes and trying to break into that industry. Truth be told, once I was in as an actor, I didn't have the passion I thought I might. I played the lead character in the movie No Rules. It was written for me. It was me. We wrote me. I got to play myself, I guess, essentially in a film, and it was fun and it was exciting. I believe the initial budget was $350,000 if I was going to play the lead character. And then the first day of filming, uh, Dan Fry, Matt Lindland, every famous guy in the sport showed up. Gene LaBelle, all these guys showed up our first day of filming at the Santa Clarita Studios. I think just to see what was going on. And I don't know if they were all Randy Couture's friends or how everybody ended up there. Dan Henderson ended up hanging out on set with us for almost the entire shoot, because these guys had nothing going on at the time because MMA hadn't really made its mark, and here we were shooting a film, so they all wanted to be part of it. And so that was exciting. We brought the crowd over and had the big energy behind us in the film. We ended up, after the first day, it was just a spectacular day because we had so much energy from the core of the sport that we ended up spending, I don't know, eight or $900,000 on the film. By the time it was over, it never got released because in the final scene we used an octagon, and we were the guinea pigs that used an octagon in the final scene. We were ready for release. Got the letter from Zuffa, saying that we couldn't release the film because of the octagon in the final scene. Crossed paths with Joe Rogan because Joe trained at John Jocks at the time. I crossed paths with Joe, and Joe said, "Oh, I heard you're having trouble with the release of your movie because you got some legal papers from Zuffa." And I said, "Yeah, we're freaking brokenhearted right now." And he said, "Well, I'll tell you, I'll go to bat for you, and I'm gonna go talk to Dana." And we were celebrating. We're like, "Dude, Joe Rogan's going to bat for us. You can't fail, right? We win because Joe's going to bat." And Joe's words were, "I do a lot for them, and I'm on Howard Stern, and I'm spreading the word of mixed martial arts." So, you know, he made it seem like he might have had a little favor from him. And so then Joe went to bat with Zuffa, and I can remember my phone ringing and Joe going, "Oh, yeah, it's Joe Rogan. Just want to let you know that Dana said nothing he can do." So we
It's
never released the film. So we got, we had this emotional roller coaster, and then at the end we were like, "Joe's going to bat for us. We're going to be sitting front row at the UFC." Dana didn't care. Dana didn't care. Zuffa didn't care. So we had a octagon in the final scene. There was no way around it. We did try to do some CGI and some fancy stuff to make it look like it wasn't the octagon, but there was no way around it. So the film never released. So you can see it on YouTube. No Rules, the movie, the entire film's there. So if you've got an hour and a half you want to never get back, you can go watch No Rules on YouTube. It's a pretty classic. There's some big mixed martial arts names in there. Early on when there was no energy behind the sport, and it was neat to have them all there and have them show up to want to be part of it. So yeah,
dang, man. No, I
yeah,
was
and then that go ahead.
no. You're talking. Go for it.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that, to talk about that kind of heartbreak that comes when you've got this thing you've worked on so hard, and then there's some detail you overlooked, and it causes it to fail. And you're going, crap. It could have been so
It
cool,
it, it
but
took. I think it would have been a $5,000 investment to an attorney to do research on the script to make sure there were no infringements, and $5,000 wasn't spent. That's my recollection. I could be wrong, but I think that was about what went down. Was they should have spent a few bucks to make sure there were no infringements, and there was an
yeah.
assumption that everything was fine. But Zuffa doesn't look at using an octagon as fine. But ironically, Aaron Norris said to me, "We used an octagon in my movie, and we called it the octagon." So who won't, haha, because Mr. Norris had a movie called The Octagon, and that was all shot in an eight-sided cage. So Aaron was all fired up. Aaron Norris was fired up when Zuffa came at us because he's like, "Oh, they can't do that because we already did it." So
Well, no one pushes Chuck Norris around, so there's that.
nope, no sir, no sir,
We all
never
know the
once.
legend of.
Ah,
Oh my gosh. Speaking of Chuck Norris jokes, do you have a favorite Chuck Norris joke?
I have no Chuck Norris jokes, but I will tell you this: I stood on stage one time in Las Vegas, and I had the microphone in my hand in front of about 1,200 people, and I did three Chuck Norris jokes with Mr. Norris standing next to me.
That's cool. I've
So
seen interviews
I
with
was
him, and he
scared.
loves
I'm
those
not
things.
gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I was scared going in. I was scared going in. I said, I got to do this. I
Do you
got to
remember
do
which
it. So
ones you
I did.
used?
I don't know. I don't know. But I made him laugh with all three of them. And on the third one, I remember looking over at him, and he kind of gave me the ha ha ha. That was a good one. So Yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. I think those interviews with him talking about those jokes, it cracks me up because he's obviously just kind of honored by them, but they're
Well, I
hilarious,
think
some of them.
he told my mother once. He told my mother once many years ago that he wasn't a fan of it, and my mom has told me many times the story in return, of course, because she loves the fact that she got her moments with Mr. Norris. But she said, "Yeah, he told me I wasn't a fan of that. I'm not a fan of this. I don't want this to happen. I'm trying to make it stop." And then a couple of years later, he's like, "I'm on board. There's nothing
Yeah,
I can do. I am the strongest man in the world." So.
yeah,
Yeah.
that caught fire and just kept burning, man. It's still going. I love it.
It's classic. No, it's
That's so
classic.
cool.
It-
Well, hey, you
mhm.
have developed quite the Instagram following, and we're gonna put your Instagram stuff in the description below these clips and the full episode. But talk about that a little bit. You've It's pretty simplified as you stay pretty focused on content, but it's beautiful, quick jujitsu technique without much showmanship, man. You stick it out there and you've gained a heck of a
Thank
following.
you.
And what was that like to build?
Thank you. You know, I didn't have Instagram. Everybody was on Instagram and I was on Facebook and I didn't even have Instagram. And one day I started an Instagram account and I never did anything with it. And I don't know what happened, but I started posting 2 or 3 videos of my kids on there. Then I posted a technical video, and I always had the attitude is my nobody wants to see my technique. It was honestly my attitude is I'm not going to post technical videos online because I don't think anybody wants to see what I do. And so one day I posted a technical video, and my friend uh, Greg Hamilton in Texas sent me a direct message and said you should try doing a reel. And I was like, well, what's a reel? And he said, oh, it says reel there. So he said, watch how many likes you get or watch how many comments you get if you post a reel. And it must have been shortly after the reels had become a thing on Instagram. I don't believe it had been a year. I believe it had been a pretty short period of time. And he said, oh, try posting a reel. So the next day I went to work and I posted a reel and I got 100 likes. And so I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. Maybe I can build a little local following off this. So the next day I shot another video and I got 200 likes because I had gained a handful of followers from the first one. And so the next day I went in and I believe it was about the fourth video that I posted as a reel had I don't know the exact numbers, but 1,000 likes and 300 shares or 200 shares or 300 shares. And I was like, holy crap, I'm blown away at this. And in maybe 8 or 10 videos in, one went viral. And then my following just went, I was getting 2,500 followers. I was getting 2,500 new followers a day. And I honestly think I would have a 500,000 followers. I have 144,000 right now. I think I would have a 500,000 followers if I didn't shut Instagram off on my phone. Because when I shut Instagram off on my phone, they threw me out of their system. So I was getting fed to everybody to follow this guy because I was had my moment of being hot. And then I got so pissed off because my phone would ring 2,500 times a day because every time somebody followed me, it go ding, ding, ding. And so I shut Instagram off on my phone and they took my blue check away and they threw me out. And I went from 2,500 followers a day to minus 400, minus 300. So my following just
Wow.
went straight down. But that was kind of the process of it. Video 9 or 10 had a little viral effect. And then I just started throwing content up there. And when I started, my desire was to get views. So I made them short because I thought I could make money if I get a lot of views. So I didn't want to say, hi, my name is, and this is what you do. I just wanted to do it fast. So they were forced to watch it over and over and over. Or a guy like yourself who had at that time maybe a blue belt in jiu-jitsu and you see my content, a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, you don't want to know my name and you don't want to know anything about me. You just want to see something cool that might fit into my game. And so that's what I did was started feeding this 2 and 3, 4 second clips without any conversation in it, and it took off. And I was fortunate to get a good following. And the true blessing of it is today is that's where all my students come from because they're local and I can advertise on that page that's got a following, and I look like I've done my diligence. If you go to my Instagram page, and if you don't know me and you see that, I'm the guy down the street, looks like it has some great value, or I might have something to give them of value. So the Instagram thing has been fun. It's been a pain. There's stages of growth in that too, because you're dealing with people who hate you and think you suck. And, you gotta, I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to anybody telling me I sucked. And, so now I'm entertained by the people that tell me I suck and, whatever. So, but it's fun. It's a fun space for me. It's really helped my own jujitsu growth because I have to be creative. I can't go on there and do an armbar from the guard the way we've been doing it since '93. I have to come up with something more. So it's been fun. On my creative weeks, I come up with some great content. I'll watch a video and then make a branch off of somebody else's video. I've never really stolen a technique from anybody, but I'll create a branch off something I saw. And that's, on my creative weeks, I have fun and I really enjoy it. I'm in a creative week right now. Thanks for asking. But there's
About to
weeks where I
ask.
like this sucks. I was like,
Yeah.
this sucks. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be creative. I don't want to deal with the camera. I just want to teach class and train. But it's been a fun process. And it's been great for the business. My guys like it. It's fun socially. I go places and they'll see my jujitsu shirt and then we'll talk. And they'll be like, hey, I follow you. I follow you. It's happened, numerous times that I see somebody in public and they know my material. So that's been fun, been super fun. And it's taken off on Facebook recently too. In the last year and a half, Facebook had started Reels, and I've got a good following going over there too, which I'm sure ultimately helps for my business. And that's really my focus is that, the popularity thing, yay. But if it can feed you some business, it's also what it's about.
Yeah. Dave, you mentioned two or three things now. One starting jujitsu, two going, coming from the farm to Los Angeles to get in the acting world, and then this Instagram thing. All of those they had a hump, right? There was a bump there where you're just having to kind of wing it, just explore your way into it and figure it out as you go. And what could you tell people about that exploration, that sucking at something at first and
You
pushing through
know, I
anyways?
think I think that a guy I follow called Ron Sell created a system called Spark Management, a member management system for business owners, for school owners. It's a management system for the schools. And he said it the other day. He said, I started a system to manage karate schools because I didn't know what I was doing, but his head was down and he was focused and he was going to do it. And I'm a martial artist. I really live a lot martial arts lifestyle. Um, but I also really try to implement that warrior mentality in anything I do. I'm not interested in doing something halfway. I'm going to catch tuna. I want to catch the biggest tuna in the ocean. I'm not interested in sitting at shore and fishing the kelp patties and catching bass. I'm not interested. I haven't even said that for a second. I want to go and try to be good at it. Not try to be good at it, but try to be the best I can be at it. And I think that's a mistake that so many people make in business. And you're a businessman and you help people or give people suggestions, and you think that they're going to go home and run on that suggestion. And 3 weeks later, they haven't moved. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time there anymore because obviously you're not going to move on it. And I'm have an attitude, or have always had that attitude. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to go for it. And if it doesn't work and I choose to turn away, then no problem at all. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it all in. And that was really the approach with, everything in my life that's been a success. And there was a hump and there was no guarantees. And like Ron Sell, I didn't know how to write a movie. I bought a book and I followed the structure of Rocky. And Jerry Anderson, my partner, and I, neither one of us had read and written a movie. But we just followed the structure of Rocky and then wrote our story based on a common structure of a hero based movie, if you will. And there we had it. And we didn't know what we were doing, but we sold it. So made a movie, showed up the first day and had trucks and people and, all that energy. But that was only because we decided we were going to do it and we put our chin down and went forward. But I think that's the most important aspect of any business or any pursuit, whether it's jujitsu like yourself or your oil business or what, any pursuit we have. If you go into it wholeheartedly, head down, ready to win, you're going to win. Stay the course. Jujitsu didn't offer me anything. I tell my kids all the time. I tell my kids all the time. I have three athletic kids. I have two kids that play travel basketball. My daughter is a class basketball player, and I tell her all the time, my stock matured 5 years ago. I've been doing this for 30, 32 years, 31 years. And 4 or 5 years ago, my energy finally came out. And yeah, I had some success along the way, but now it's like, okay, I have a place that the Instagram page, which gives me an energy worldwide that's priceless, absolutely priceless. What I can do because I stayed true to or focused on the martial arts and then found a way to implement that onto social media. But you have the followers I have on Instagram. I don't make a lot of money off it. I have months where I've made a decent amount of money. Um, but I get products what I want. If I want a product, I can get a product. And that to me is just as valuable as money because I have sponsors, I have people that give me product for the return of show. And that's a beautiful thing to me. It's a beautiful thing. So I think the most important thing is that when we're in pursuit of something that you believe in it and you keep your chin down and you go. And if you do, there's success.
Yeah.
Success is available for us. Success is available for us. You're not successful because you relaxed. You're successful because every day you have a desire. Every day you have a mission. And you're on vacation, but you're sending text messages to work. You're
Mhm.
getting married, but that morning you're still hitting the text to make sure, things are in line at work. And that's the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And I love that phrase, and I try to do one thing the way I do everything or not do it at all, you know.
Dang, man, that's some good stuff.
Well,
Dave, can we
thanks.
switch to some lighter hearted stuff?
Absolutely.
um, this is called the Go Earn Your Salt podcast. And when you hear that term, go earn your salt, what does it mean to you?
Means I got to train hard. That's a go earn your salt is you got to put your chin down and you got to do what I just said. You got to train hard. It's easy to have a sore knee or a sore elbow and miss the training session, but you're gonna earn what you have. And your belt is your effort over time. And earning your salt is going after it, chin down and going after it.
Nice, man. Well said. Um, your favorite pastime outside of jujitsu? We've talked a bit about tuna fishing. I suppose that's it for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I love my kids. I can sit on the edge of a basketball court for days and watch my kids play basketball. I'm calm only a few places on this earth, at sea, on the mat, watching my kids play basketball. I turn my phone off, I put my phone away, and I just sit there and enjoy the process of watching my kids do what they
Nice.
do, trying to implement some of the things that I've learned through the years and help them become stronger and better in their games. And they're my 16-year-old and my 14-year-old are amazingly committed athletes who are willing to train 4 and 5 hours a day and not hesitate and do it in repetition. So to me, that's a win. You know, they go out and push themselves, and I can share with them some of the things that I've done through the years and things that I've pushed through and challenges I've had. So when they're in those challenges of injuries or slump or whatever it might be, we can push through it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good, man. Tell me this: what's your favorite band? I know you know a lot of people in bands. In fact, you introduced me to some. Um, but your favorite band of all time?
Uh, if I had to turn some music on and light up the backyard on a Sunday morning, it would probably be Metallica.
Nice.
I
High on my
I
list
was
also.
my greatest musical experience of my life was the movie release party for Orgasmo was at the Playboy Mansion.
Mm.
And so I got to see Metallica play at the Playboy Mansion on a Sunday morning with 150 people there. And
Oh wow.
they played for an hour on Sunday morning at the Playboy Mansion. I was there with my high school friend Keith Seeney, and we got to, you could jump on stage with him. I didn't even know it was incredible. And I was not a Metallica fan at the time. I knew the name. That's all it was to me was a name, I think, at the time. But I walked away from there a Metallica fan. I thought it was just absolutely incredible. And yeah, I can turn some Metallica up super loud.
That's a cool experience, man. That is way cool. Dave, what's something quirky about you that people don't know?
Nothing. Nothing. Define quirky.
Oh, something that's maybe just a little habit or a hobby or something that just people don't know about you. You got a bottle cap
You
collection
know,
or
I
something cool?
No, no, not at all. I'm a minimalist. I have about this many clothes in my closet. I wear this hoodie about 6 days a week. I just started wearing shoes maybe a year and a half ago because my kids were so into basketball and this Nike thing. So I had to buy a handful of Nikes. But yeah, I'm a minimalist. I have very little stuff in my closet. I have nothing in the garage. I don't even have tools in the garage. I'm such a minimalist. I tell people I'm the only tool in my garage.
Nice.
I have 15 fishing poles and 15 fishing reels and some clothes. It's really all I have. My backyard is got a couple chairs in it, and that's about it. I live a pretty conservative, minimalist martial arts lifestyle. I have a great garden. I cleared my garden off a couple days ago, and probably this weekend or next weekend I'll get everything out and start my seeds to have my garden all from seeds this year. A majority of it, almost all of it from seeds. So yeah, nothing really
It's
quirky.
cool.
I'm pretty square and live inside the box.
Well, hey, minimalist is a quirk, man. That's a perfect example. Perfect example. What's your favorite food?
Tough question. If you could pull a bluefin tuna from the sea and stick it in the cooler for about 2 hours and pull that out at 37 degrees and give me some sushi, I'm gonna call that God's food.
You know,
Did we have sushi straight from the ocean when we fished?
we
We
did.
did, huh? We pulled
Yeah.
that day of, same day.
And I'll tell you, man,
Doesn't get much better.
it was good then, and I've enjoyed it much less after it was frozen. It's
Much less.
yeah,
Now,
much
I know you
less.
said you like that rockfish, yeah, but the rockfish, if you're eating tacos, that rockfish taco is some good stuff. And I know you sent
Oh
me
yeah, man.
a text message or two with some rockfish tacos on there. I wanted to drive to Boise. Yeah,
Yeah, those are good.
I don't eat rockfish tacos because I don't make them well. But man, I know we caught a lot of rockfish that trip because we had limits of tuna, so we had so many rockfish too. I know you took those home.
Yeah, I know Razor Rob was out there just catching rockfish. He didn't realize at one point that the rest of us were over there catching tuna. He thought we were all catching rockfish. He wasn't paying attention, so he was just fishing for rockfish off the bottom, and
Oh,
didn't
he was
realize the
on the
tuna
bottom
hatch
when
was up.
we were. Oh, Razor Rob. I still got a bone to pick with that guy. Unfortunately, he will beat both of us up. But
Yeah, yeah, no doubt.
remember in the middle of the night, he stole my new setup and dropped my rig down and caught two tuna. While I was looking for my. I'm like, where'd my pole go? Where'd my setup go? And he's pulling his second tuna up as I'm looking for my setup that he took. So I
Oh my
still got a
gosh,
bone to pick with him.
I didn't even
He
know
knows
that
I'm
battle
mad
was
at him.
going on, man. Had no idea.
Yeah, you were too busy. You were
I
too
was too
busy
busy
pulling
catching
fish.
fish.
Yeah, I know. I remember. I have the video.
Yeah,
I didn't catch any. I already went over that. I don't want to talk about that
I
anymore.
love it. That was a good time. If you could go back, what's some advice you'd give your younger self?
I don't know. Put money in the market earlier. and buy some Bitcoin at 25 cents, you know?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. The decisions I made because I was living life, you know? I came to Los Angeles. I got a bachelor's degree. I was 23 or 24. Had a normal, had professional jobs in Michigan for a couple years after I graduated college, and I came west to have fun. I came west to enjoy life. I came west to not wear shoes and live the California lifestyle. And I wasn't concerned with money, and I wasn't concerned with having a good time. And I had a good time. I enjoyed what was here, and took advantage of it, and surfed and fished and did the things associated with living in Southern California. So I'm not sure if I have any specific advice other than maybe put some money in the market earlier. So, you know, if I'd have put $100 a week in the market, I'd have more money than I do now. But I
That
didn't.
compounding magic, huh?
Uh-huh. It doesn't compound as fast when you're in your 50s.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. That is good advice, though, man. Just invest early, invest often. Just like tapping, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Dave, what's an item on your bucket list? Something you want to do before you cash it all in?
Being that I'm 60 next year in 2026, I just I'm an avid fisherman, and I'm gonna do some fishing in some fun places around the world, I don't have a specific spot. I have some specific spots I want to go. Cedros Island is about 300 or 400 miles south of the border here, in 3 or 400 miles south of the California border. Is Cedros Island, some of the best yellowtail fishing in the world. That's probably my first thing on that list. First place I'll go. My buddy Jeremy McCone and I are talking about going there potentially next year, and Pat going with us. But yeah, fishing I think ultimately will be the what I would like to do as I age or get older, and the kids are out of the house and I have some time and freedom. And I'll take you with me, but I know you got to work a lot more years than me because you're not quite 60 yet. You're rich though, dude. You put all your money away. You did that you bought Bitcoin at
I wish,
25
man.
cents.
I
So
wish. I wish. Yeah, rich
mhm.
is a relative scale, isn't it? That's yeah.
Well,
It's
it's not cheap
comfortable.
in Boise anymore either.
No, man. All you
Boise's not
Californians moved
cheap.
here and brought that with you.
Wait, I saw him. I saw him go.
Man, one of these days
Mhm.
I'm gonna get you here. That's what we're gonna do. But
I got to come watch a football game next year. Watch my buddy Jerry Reeser kick the ball.
oh, nice, man. You better call me when you get
Yeah,
here.
my buddy's he's still up there, so I think he's got one more year. So
I love it.
I'll make it up there to see you.
Dave, do you have a favorite book?
Uh, I wouldn't say I have a favorite book right now. I listen to a lot of audio tape stuff, and right now I'm on Napoleon Hill. Um,
Me too. Right now.
Really,
Yeah.
I love that guy. I love that
Dude.
guy. I studied him in college. I can't remember if we were listening to, we must have listened to audio tapes of him in college in my sales class or in one of my business classes, because I know the guy's voice so well from back then. But I also believe I read some of his books in college. And then maybe a month ago, I was like, that Napoleon Hill guy from college, that was some good stuff. And so I punched him up, and I got to hear his quirky little voice. And but he's got such an incredible message for a message that was sent 100 years ago. Like,
Right.
how can you be so in touch with what's going on today 100 years ago? Is incredible. Incredible. That guy had something special. He really did.
Dude, I love reading old books. From 17, 18, 19, or some Charles Dickens stuff. Um, because you realize that the problems we have today and all the political bullcrap we have and the social angst, the things that happen in our society today, they were happening back then too, man. And it makes you feel a little more comfortable that,
Absolutely.
the world's probably not really falling apart. I think everybody's always thought it was falling apart. And it's probably
Yeah, yeah,
more of the same. And I love it. I love it.
yeah.
But awesome, man. Well, listen, tell us where
Awesome.
you can be found.
David Dunn is my Facebook, and David Dunn underscore Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram. David Dunn underscore Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram. Correct. I have a Jiu-Jitsu content there. Only Jiu-Jitsu content. Pretty simple, but it looks like that right there. Come
Nice.
visit me, David Dunn Jiu-Jitsu, and I'd love to have you and potentially help you a little bit. And I appreciate you. Always good to see you, Mr. Salty. Always
Man.
you were in my phone as Salty Riley. So it's always good to see you, and I look forward to fishing with you again sometime soon. Since
Yeah,
you can't
man. I'll
fish
have to
with
do
us
that. Get some jujitsu
in May,
training
we'll.
in. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep, that's awesome. It's been a pleasure having you on, man. I know it's been kind of a long time
Hi,
coming,
brother.
trying to track you down, but
Yeah, we've been. I'm not. I'm here today. We're done. We
I love
got
it.
through it.
I
We
love
got
it,
through
man.
it.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you for coming on and going your
Pleasure.
salt,
Good
my
to have
friend.
you. Good to see you. All right. Enjoy your day. Happy New Year to you, brother.
Hey, you too, man. Hey, you've just finished up this episode, and I want to know, are you or someone you know a getting after it, going your salt type of person? If so, message me directly on Instagram at the Go Earn Your Salt podcast, and perhaps we can have you on the show. Also, if you like this content, leave us a review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And perhaps this podcast can help you and them go earn your salt.